Okay, so being on or about 6:30, call this meeting of the Easton Conservation Commission for November 2nd, 2020 to order. Please note, this is a remote meeting using Zoom technology due to the state of emergency initiated in March by Governor Baker in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. This meeting will be recorded, both audio and video. Applicants will be given the ability to assume remote control for the hearings if they wish. Otherwise, we have plans and documents available here we can share. Please note, on April 6th, the Commission delegated signature authority to Andrea Langhauser, Environmental Planner, Assistant Planning Director, for all decisions issued during the duration of the emergency. So now that we've had all of that taken care of, let's start with our first hearing, which is a request for determination of applicability, 24 Armour Lane.
Unmade. That took me a while. I see one. The Dunmeads are just promoted to panelists. I don't know which one it is. Is there?
We're having some technical difficulties.
You hear us?
We can hear you, yes?
Okay.
The video's over there.
Can you see us?
Okay.
Not yet. There we go.
Coming.
Oh, okay.
We can see you now.
Hello.
Welcome.
All right.
So welcome to the Easton Conservation Commission. And I know you probably saw a couple of us out at the site. So just want to give you an opportunity to give us some idea of what you're looking to do on the property, and then we can ask some questions and figure out where we're going from here.
Sure. Thanks. Thank you for your time tonight. So we moved into this house in August 18th. We wanted a pool, found a house with a pool in Easton and purchased it. When we moved in, the first thing, the kids wouldn't go swimming because the pool didn't reach over 62 degrees mid-August. So some of you guys were here, but as you noticed, we had a bunch of trees that overhang the pool that kind of block the sun. So the reason where we come to you guys tonight is because we want to take down some of those trees to get natural light on the pool is one reason. Another reason is that we want to add solar panels to the back of our house. Our house is south-facing roof, so it's ideal for solar energy. So we have a project in the works now to get the solar panels installed, but we just make sure it makes sense for us to do so. And then the third reason is we have two dogs and we want to put a fence around the existing lawn of our house. And that's right where the trees start.
Okay, so I think there's some questions that might have just to sort of so we can talking the same thing here.
I don't know if you can see your screen. There you go.
Yeah. The number of trees we're talking about here, I think they were counted as 21 that are marked for removal. Is that correct?
Yep.
And the second issue is that Andrea, can you just clarify for me on the plan that the as-built that was provided? This line is the wetland line or the approximate location of it?
That's the shape of the wetland. The distance of the wetland line to the black line is about 25 feet.
Okay.
And then that first dot if north is down the screen, which is unusual, then the most northerly yellow green dot
This one here.
Yes, thanks. I was just about to start annotating. That one is the larger tree at, and it's right on, it's now on the wetland edge. And it has a diameter of about 22 inches.
So this one is actually on the wetland edge?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is not as close to, it's not as close to the black line as it is to the wetland edge.
I see.
So the plan is no longer to scale.
Right. So it's all relative.
Right. In terms of relative, if you take the green dot, the green dot that's the farther one, the closer one in on the next one, the one behind it, that one is over 50 feet from the wetland edge.
Okay. I think that so the materials presented in the request for determination of applicability here talk about some of the carbon offset that's acquired as part of the solar installation, and some of the difference in that carbon offset that could be attributable to removing some of the trees to give you better sun access to your roof. So that's part of what was discussed there. I don't know that other wetland values were really addressed here. I think that part of my concern with this from an RDA standpoint is that I don't see that there's any way from, and I'll let other commissioners speak and give some opinions as well, but from my own standpoint, I don't know that there's any way for us to say that removing 21 trees most of them in the buffer zone, and some of substantial size. I mean, they are close to 2 feet in diameter, 3 or 4 of them. And there's a bunch that are maybe more in the 6-inch range. But there are some pretty substantial trees there that we would have a hard time saying that trees that are in the buffer zone in an area that's designated as an ACEC area of critically environmental concern, that we'd be hard pressed to say that going to have any detrimental effect. So the question that I guess, where do we go from here? So if we issue a positive a request for determination of applicability, and we then require you to issue to file a notice of intent with plans and meet all the other criteria, what would we expect to be able to, that's approvable in this project? I think that there would be a pretty difficult time to prove, from my standpoint, removing all 21 trees and having your fence line be fair, inside that 50-foot buffer zone. From the best that I can tell, it may be in that 25 to 50-foot range, but it's certainly inside the 50-foot range to the wetlands. So I think those are the challenges from my standpoint, that even if we issue a positive request for determination of applicability, which means that yes, we believe that the wetlands could be impacted by the requested activity, then you file an NOI for this specific request, I'm not sure it's approvable. So I'd like to have a conversation with you about, maybe amongst all of us on the commission, if they're in agreement with that mindset, that what do we think potentially you could do to address some of your concerns about shade in your backyard, as well as a better sun exposure to your roof. So I'll leave. Anybody else have comments?
Yeah, real quick. This is Mike speaking. So I also have a pool in Easton, and we had the same issue here. We had tons of trees covering it and so on. The water would never get warm, and I'm the same way. I want to be in warm water. With 20, you're just speaking 21 trees to get taken down. With the expense of that, have you guys looked into possible just heating the pool? It seems like that almost could be very close to each other as far as price goes, and that would also then help with the tree elimination.
We haven't really looked into that yet. We kind of wanted to have more sun on the pool too, just while you're in the pool. It's like, you know.
Yeah, our thought was that we wanted to do solar. We had solar at our previous house. So we like the idea of solar and the carbon offset and saving some money. And from what I can tell, it would be more expensive to do a heater, and plus I'm paying a monthly bill for the heater to heat the pool.
Well, you know, too, it'd be fun. You could run the solar to the heater as well. It, you know, just as a thought. I'm not an electrician, but I'm sure there's a way of doing it.
Yep. Yeah, we would need the solar on top of the roof.
Yeah, I mean, I will tell you, as somebody who's had a pool, and I have a bunch of trees in my backyard as well. I guess we all live in Easton, so I get a fair bit of sun on mine, but in August you definitely see a drop in the temperature of the pool, partly because of the overnight temperatures really decrease a lot. You're starting to get 60-degree temperatures and 50-degree temperatures at night. So I mean, it's sort of natural in general, even if you're getting sun on the pool. I think mine gets down to about 65 if I don't heat it or don't cover it with a solar cover. So I'm just saying that all your problems aren't going to get solved by removing the trees as far as the pool is concerned. Yes, I think it's probably more advantageous and usable if you have more sun just exposing onto the pool. The kids would be more comfortable even during the daytime. So don't get me wrong. I think it's a better thing. I'm just saying it may not solve it as much as you think it does. And if you're going to have that kind of activity in the pool, you may have to seek other solutions in addition to removing the trees.
Yeah, I think one of our things too, so we want to put the fence in, so that's why we were kind of thinking it's obviously easier for the tree company to get back there, you know, using our lawn rather than going around the wetlands to take down trees further down the line if we tried. So that's one of the things too.
Sure, absolutely. Anybody else, Carol or John?
Sure, this is Carol. I agree with Rory that I'm concerned about the approvability of the concept here. If I may share my screen, I have two things I want to talk about. Share screen. I cannot start screen share while the other participant is sharing.
Okay, I'll stop mine. Hang on.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you. So here's a satellite photo.
No, it's a different piece of property.
So that's it. That's it.
No, that's
Okay.
it.
Oh yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Right, so you can see that the trees are all green. I don't see any yellow. It does not look like spring green to me. And the sun is shining on this day, and we can see that we can see the pool here, and we can see the roof where the solar panels would go. I mean, I understand, you know, we all want to swim in a pool that feels comfortable, but there is part of the day where the sun does come into the, you know, onto the water of the pool. So I want to point that out. And the other thing is that Rory, I agree with your concerns, and I want to add that we have 50323 standards applicable to areas of critical environmental concern. We have to require that the applicant meet the burden of proof required for a waiver. And that's pretty heavy because that has to include a public benefit. And we haven't looked at other options. Could be, you know, maybe buying into a solar farm kind of concept. There's one other thing I was reading about, you know, alternatives to having panels put on your home.
Well, I think the applicant, just as a note, just to be clear, that in the application, the applicant, if they go forward with the solar installation that they've had designed, it will produce, 8 kilowatt hours. So it's not, it just would increase the output of the solar panels on their roof. It would increase it to 11 something from the best. I'm going off the top of my head. I think those are about the numbers. I think that there is some, obviously it isn't that the solar panels are not usable. I was there on just as a point of information here, I was there on Saturday around midday, around 2 o'clock probably. And I would say that probably their roof was predominantly shaded at that point. It was probably 2/3 shaded at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So now it's, October, it's getting to the, almost to the nadir of sunlight, but certainly at different times of year, the impact of those trees is going to be different, especially with the sun so low in the sky this time of day, or this time of year. So I think that one of the things, Carol, and I think that this is, I think the conversation we should have is not that they haven't met that burden of proof or anything. Is that if they file an NOI, what would we expect them to request that we think we could even talk about as doing it? I think that some of the options that may be presented is perhaps instead of taking the trees down, trying to trim them so that they can get some additional sunlight. That way, it may actually improve the health of the trees if they get trimmed, and maybe also create some better opportunity for some of the understory to grow. There's other options for us to be able to look at this and say, can we meet their needs and their request to provide a better access to the sun in their property, and at the same time not impact the wetlands in this ACEC at the same time. So those are some of the things that I think that maybe we could sort of talk about. I mean, I don't know if we want to vote on this, how we'd end up with an RDA on this. But I think, I don't know. John, do you have anything to offer?
Sure, I got some stuff I can offer.
Great.
I guess looking at this project, I'm kind of looking at it from like a solar perspective right now. So I guess my first question is, how tall are these trees?
Well, the 24 inch DBH and the 20 DBH, they are taller than the roof line.
Okay, so I guess,
yeah, I mean, they're like 50 to 60 feet, I would guess.
okay, and how high is the roof?
2.5 feet, 2.5 stories.
Okay, so
Am I answering correctly,
Yeah.
landowners? Okay.
That's correct. Yeah, I haven't measured it, but yeah, it's two stories and it's got
2.5
top.
stories plus the roof, so it's probably about 30, 35 feet from there.
So what I would kind of be interested in looking for is kind of the shade management area for that, and figuring out what the potential of that shade potential on those panels would be.
Yeah, we just got that back. Well, we didn't get it back. With the shade guy came and did when he gets on the roof and does the analysis and everything.
Right. And he takes up one of those little kaleidoscope machines and figures out how high the trees are.
Yeah, and it's
The
significant.
calculation, I've done that before.
Okay, yeah, and it's significant. I think it actually dropped from when the company actually wrote the letter that was submitted with the application.
Right.
I think with the shade, it was considering like 7,000 or 6 something kilowatt hours per year, and I think as the trees is now, I think it dropped to like 5,800 or 5,500
Right.
kilowatt hours per year. So it is significant shading.
Yeah, so that's one thing I'd want to see is kind of what the potential for those, if you wanted to put panels along the south side of your house, and what the shade management, impact could potentially be. And then, for instance, understanding what potential trees that might contribute to that shade potential will be. And then also the other thing that I'm interested in seeing is some dimensions on a plan for that fence that you're proposing, because the site plan you have currently does not show the pool. So I'm kind of interested in understanding where the dimensions off the pool are going to be for that fence.
I think the pool was in that picture. Is that the as-built plans?
The one that was up previously?
Yeah, there's just a 2 or 3 foot apron on the back side of the pool where the existing fence line is, and then they want to follow the lawn around.
What's the distance across?
Was that on that
Sure,
other, can you share that screen? Did we write it on?
Carol, can you stop your share, Carol?
Sorry, how do I stop? Okay.
Go to the top. There you go.
I forget if the pool was on there or not.
Yeah, no, the pool isn't on, but the
Oh,
pool,
yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah, so we just kind of wrote, yeah.
this is where the pool is here.
Yeah.
Right, right.
So I have up here, it's 50 feet, approximately 50 feet off the existing house.
Yeah, that seems aggressive. But maybe a 5-foot perimeter, 40-foot pool.
That's the edge. That's what I'm pulling off the edge of the deck right now.
Yeah.
Where are you getting that information from?
Mass Oliver.
He's got he's looking at an aerial photo.
So that's from the start of my pool to the closest part of my house?
Well,
Like
from
off
the end of your pool, so the furthest extent heading towards the wetland.
He's trying to get the distance of where the fence is going to be.
Oh.
And it's going to be at that point, it's going to be about 65 feet from, the fence line will be about 65, 70 feet from the wetland edge.
Yeah, so ultimately what I'm trying to figure out is how much disturbance is going to occur within the buffer zone.
So the existing lawn is pre-86.
Yeah,
And so it exists as disturbance.
yeah,
So the fence is at the edge of existing disturbance.
okay,
So nothing from the fence.
okay,
But the landscaping, the tree removal or the, limbing up, that's the area of disturbance. And it's a good, I would say easily somewhere between 1,500 and 2,500 square feet.
for those 21 trees,
Yeah.
okay.
So just without committing anyone to a vote on this, because I want to sort of break this into 2 parts here if we're going to go in a certain direction. Is there anyone that is comfortable with issuing a negative RDA on this? And could we condition it in such a way that we feel comfortable doing that? So that's no one. So I'd say that given that we probably would not issue a negative RDA even with conditions, that we're looking at a positive RDA, which would require the applicant to file an NOI. Now we might as well give the information to the applicant now, and I'm not asking us to specifically say that I would agree to that a couple months from now when an NOI comes in, notice of intent. Sorry, we use a lot of acronyms. So that when a notice of intent comes in, that I'm binding anyone to what we're talking about tonight. I'm just trying to get to some conceptual message to the homeowner to say, if you come in for an NOI, we would probably agree to the fence at the existing lawn line. And what would we agree to the trees? Would we allow them to remove a certain number of trees that are under 6 inches? Could they remove half of them? Could they remove 5 of them? Would we allow them to remove any of the trees that are 20 inches or greater? Would we allow them to limb those trees? What information will we need in order to allow them to do that? I really don't want to spend the next half hour talking about this, but I do want to give them some concept. From my standpoint, I might, with the right information to support the impact of them, I might allow them to remove some of the smaller trees. I don't think that I'm comfortable, given where it is, to remove the larger healthy trees. If there was an advantage from a solar standpoint to taking some of the limbs down, and it could be substantiated that you're creating a better healthy environment for that tree and the understory, that maybe you're creating a better wildlife habitat, and a healthier tree that can deal with flood control and water quality. I think that there might be an argument there to be made. The proof would be in the applicant to make those arguments, not necessarily the commission. So that's what, from my standpoint, I'm giving them a rough sense of what might be allowable in this situation, if it's properly supported, obviously. And Carol talked about 50323 with the waiver requirements for ACEC. So.
And recognize that nobody's talking grubbing, nobody's talking getting rid of the stumps in any circumstance. They're not regrading in any way. It's changing of lands, it's removal of trees that, would you want them to put a lower story vegetation that might have some wildlife habitat benefit that could offset the solar?
Yeah, and maybe maybe that's an interesting approach, is that for every tree that we take down, we replace it with something that might be smaller in stature.
I've done that on other projects, for solar projects, where you have a shade management area that is kind of like a mitigation area at the same time.
Yeah, well, that would be an interesting approach here. If you could come in and make the argument that maybe that's the answer. I don't know, but that's certainly an option, and I'm glad that someone mentioned it, because I think that creating a healthy environment here for that wetland resource is the ultimate. It's going to make the project approvable, potentially approvable. So I think those are some of the things. Carol, any feedback?
Sure, thank you. One of my main concerns about removing trees is that the bigger they are, the more wildlife support they provide, more habitat they provide, the more flood mitigation they provide by soaking up, some of them tens of thousands of gallons of water every year. If we could have a look at, if I could share my screen, please. So this is from the Mass Association of Conservation Commissioners, page 23 of the buffer zone guidebook. This shows the recommended widths of buffers to protect various aquatic resources, including pollutant removal. You can see the key here is that in blue, it's a minimum effective protective zone, and in green is maximum effective protective zone. Nutrient removal is, the blue is the minimum effective. It's coming in at somewhere right around here. These are
20.
Yep, 20%, 20 feet. Sediment removal, 20 feet, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is the kind of thing that they have to be aware of, that are the functions of that wetland, beyond just being trees or wet. I mean, there are functions: wildlife habitat, sediment control, flood control, water quality control. There's just a long laundry list of what's going on. That wildlife is being pointed out right here, is that could be hundreds of feet, not just the 50 feet we're talking about. Certainly undisturbed land here is relatively small compared to their disturbed property. But I think that certainly is the impact here. So I think that's part of when, you as the applicant, Mr. and Mrs. Dunmead, that when you're looking at this, you have to understand that we're trying to balance what might get lost. Sorry, I've got a very large insect flying around my office. I think it's a wasp of some sort, so I'm going to keep an eye on it.
But not one of those murder hornets.
No, not yet. So I think we're trying to balance that what might be lost by allowing the project to move forward, and how do we replace that? And John talked about mitigation, and so I think that that's part of when, if you choose to go forward with an NOI, you're going to need to understand that everything that we remove from that buffer zone, and not just the 50, because when we look at the second 50, the 50 to 100 foot zone, we have to determine, is that impacting the 50-foot buffer zone? So we have to understand, especially in an ACEC, and I think so. John's giving you some ideas about mitigation and shade projects, and you may have to look for some ideas out there that may already be done in, as far as projects that have already been constructed by other people. So that's from my standpoint. Mike, I didn't mean to not include you, but
No, totally, I understand, no worries.
so. Do you guys have any questions for us, Dunmeads?
So the NOI, would we need the NOI even for a fence, if we just wanted to do a fence and put a pool heater in?
I'm not sure about the pool heater part.
No, that's fence there.
The fence you would need, yes. Now, I wouldn't say that. If we wanted to talk about doing an RDA today, and we scaled the project back and we said that we're going to issue an RDA for the fence, okay, we could do that tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we could probably vote on that tonight, and I can't see Mike, but he might be nodding his head too. I saw John nodding his head. That if we want to say, let's take the trees off the table for now, okay?
Right.
And that's a much larger conversation that maybe wasn't anticipated. That if we wanted to talk about just doing the fence along the existing wood line, okay, we could probably talk about that. And we could probably get a vote tonight, and maybe we issue a negative RDA, which means you could move forward with that and with conditions. So does that answer the question?
What do you think? I mean, that's the only thing I'm thinking, because like I'm not really versed in all this.
Oh, I know.
And everything, but
yeah.
So the NOI is that consists of me hiring an engineer and getting the whole wetlands mapped and analyzed and everything, right?
Correct. Yes.
So we're not doing that.
Yeah. So can we talk about like trimming up some trees and the fence and get something like that moving, or even trimming the fence, trimming the trees? Do we have to get an NOI?
No, we could, that's probably that could fall into a request for determination of applicability. It's possible we could determine that to be no negative impact on the wetlands. So I mean, if we wanted to take removing trees off the table and simply talk about fence and limbing up some of the trees, we could do that. So
Right. Yeah.
okay. So who wants to give some parameters on what type of limbing of these trees might be proposed?
Well, no, I'd like us to to be really clear about the language we're using. When I think of limbing up, I think of removing lower limbs from a tree. That's not going to help so much with the changing the sun and shade situation.
Mhm.
Topping the trees, taking the
They-
top of the tree is a different thing that would or could bring more sun in.
So are you suggesting that we should consider topping these trees? Or they should consider it?
Well, I'm just saying let's be careful with the language that we're using.
So can we top off trees? Are you saying like cutting off like the tops of trees and just basically having the trunks? Or are we saying that we can take off limbs?
So what I was considering was taking off limbs.
And lower limbs,
Yeah,
limbs for leaving the top canopy.
So
in
then I don't
place.
think that would really do much for the,
I can't really see the trees right now,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know. I'd have to talk to the shade solar company to see what impact that would have, but
Usually it's the trees that are in the westerly and easterly orientation. The northern and southern trees don't really affect solar panels as much. But it just depends on how your house is positioned. If it's due north or due south, then that's one thing that a shade expert should be able to provide you information on.
okay.
yeah, I think this house faces due north. So all these trees are on due south of the house.
Yeah.
So, so it seems to me that you may find that limbing these trees might help the health of the trees, but it's really not going to help you from a shade perspective. And to be quite honest, the big trees, there's not a lot of lower limbs.
You're
Right.
probably right. We can't see
I'd say
them.
the first 20 or 30 feet there's no limbs. So
Yeah,
except
you're
maybe on one of the pines there's some existing
I
stumps.
guess
of
the one that I'm
them.
thinking, the one like on the left of the house, that one has the most shade on the house. So maybe if we could limb up, I guess some of that, but not at the top, no. All right, so I guess now just the fence then, if we can't, right? So I guess now we'll just see about the fence, if we can get the fence approved.
Yep. So I mean, the fence helps you because that's what you need for your dogs, right? So
Right,
um,
yeah. And right now, the way the fence is around the pool, it's not really in compliance. It's not under the
Right.
decking. It has no fence around it.
Right.
So it would help be in compliance and then just being able to have the dogs in the back there.
Sure. Anybody have any? So the question about the fence: Are you looking to remove any of to go into the wooded area at all? Or are you literally
Yep.
staying along the edge of the fence,
Yep.
the lawn?
Cutting the brush that overhangs the lawn. So just
Yeah.
cutting that back to make the fence right on the lawn perimeter.
Okay. So from my perspective, I would be in favor of that, issuing a negative RDA for doing a fence here. I'd like to put some parameters around it to ensure that we're not promising more than what we expect here.
I would position it that they stake the area where the fence corners are going to be, and the agent goes out there and confirms them.
Thank you, John. I've been on the site a couple times with them, and the amount of overhang of the shrub into the lawn isn't so sufficient that the grass isn't growing.
Okay.
So we're talking inches.
Okay.
It's really the existing edge of existing lawn is, I think, you just gotten them scared about, cutting cutting lips.
Well, I'm comfortable with it if you're comfortable with it, Andrea.
Thank you.
Okay, any questions about the fence portion of this project?
I'm okay with the fence.
Okay, so as the applicants, would you like me to make a motion to talk simply about the fence, remove any discussion of the trees?
Right? Yeah,
I know it's not what you wanted to hear tonight,
yeah.
and I'm trying to get you out of here so that you, and I appreciate you proposing to just do the fence so you get out of here with something, but as far as if you wanted to move forward with the tree portion of this project, I think we gave you a good idea tonight of what would
Right.
it take to do that. And as much as that's not what you wanted to hear tonight, I think that's the best I can do for you.
Okay, yeah, we can just go for the fence at this point, just the fence.
So Andrea, do you want to confirm the fence line, or do you want it to just say edge of lawn?
I think edge of lawn, I don't think we have an enforcement issue here. I think the applicant understands where the edge of lawn is in the same manner that I do.
Okay, great. So I'm going to make a motion to issue a negative RDA for 24 Armor Lane related strictly to the request to put in a fence with the condition that the fence not extend beyond edge of lawn, and also condition that no dumping in the wetlands.
Spady, a second.
Roll call vote. Carol.
Right, if we could be more specific about what no dumping in the wetlands mean, does that mean no dumping in the wetland, a 50-foot buffer, the 100-foot buffer?
No, okay, let me amend my motion. I make a motion.
What
to
do you
issue-
do?
Yeah,
The Drumids have already moved their landscape debris pile. It's greater than, to be greater than 50 feet from the wetland. It's on the side of, it's next to the pool, as far from the wetland as they can get.
Yeah, I'll move that way up the hill.
okay, so I'm gonna I'm just trying to figure out how to phrase this. If someone wants to jump in and phrase it for me, then feel free, but
No dumping in the 50-foot buffer zone or wetland.
so let me withdraw the motion and restate the whole motion, okay? So I withdraw the motion, and I'm gonna make a motion to issue a negative RDA for 24 Armor Lane related to installation of a fence only, with the condition that the fence not extend beyond the existing lawn edge, and no dumping in the wetlands in the 50-foot buffer.
Spady, a second.
Roll call vote, Caulfield's aye.
I'm sorry, Rory, did you want any public comment?
Oh, I'm sorry. Got caught up in this. Public comment for 24 Armor Lane. Just raise your hand or put a comment in the Q&A box. Okay, so seeing none, my motion still stands. So Caulfield's aye. What? I didn't hear you, Carol.
Lundin, aye.
Spady, aye.
Thomas, aye.
Okay, so that was for the fence. So we issued a negative RDA, okay, with conditions. And if you want to go for the NOI on the trees, that'll have to come at a later time.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So do we need anything further? Are we good to do the fence now if we want to?
Andrea.
We'll issue the decision within the week,
Okay.
but you can order it.
Yeah, so educating
It's been ordered for months.
We didn't realize how close we were until after we ordered it, so.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Good, thank you.
27 Miller Road. This is a request for determination of applicability for repair of a residential septic.
And it's Collins Engineering, I believe. So I'm bringing in Peter Lyons and his plan view. Anybody else for this project? Raise your hand. No?
Okay, so
Can I
Peter,
just say that the last project, all the abutter notifications were sent in for applications? And can I just say, across the board, all the abutter notifications have been brought in?
thank you.
Thank you. My apologies.
That's very helpful, thank you.
Peter,
How we doing, guys? You hear me all right?
good. Thanks for hanging in.
No problem. I'll try to be short and sweet with mine. We got two tonight. I believe the first one is 27 Miller Road.
Correct, absolutely, yep.
All right. You want me to do the intro or?
You are up, my friend.
Awesome. All right. Peter Lyons with Collins Engineering, representing the homeowner tonight for a RDA relative to a septic repair on an existing 4-bedroom house. The quick overview of the property. We're proposing to redo the septic system in the rear, and behind the property is a stream and associated BVW. We are a little over 100 feet outside of the 100 feet away from the resource area with the project. The leaching area is shown at 106 feet from the resource, and the tank is also outside the 100. The only thing
Is that your dog, Peter, or somebody else's?
yeah, I think there's someone down at the door. She's going nuts. Sorry. I can't grab her. She's in the other room.
It's just the way Zoom calls go, Peter.
She's been good most of them. You should settle down in a second. I'm sorry.
No, it's no problem.
Layla, shush! Hey.
My dog's gonna start barking soon during this video. That's why my camera's off. This dog's gonna lose it. Love it. She's looking at me like ready to kill.
Oh, I know. Where was I? So the only erosion control we have is just inside 100 foot to the resource area, and that's to encompass the decommissioning of the existing pits. No anticipated tree removal, very minimal grading change over the tank. This is a pretty straightforward project. It's tight, but access is okay, being right at the end of the driveway. They'll install the tank first and kind of work their way out, build the field afterwards. So it's a tight one, but it shouldn't be too bad. We proposed 3 conservation posts across the back of the property, as we typically do. There's details for those on the plan as well. We additionally squeeze in a little soil stockpile area. They're only going to be able to, to store so much material on site. Anything excess is going to have to be trucked out. That's about it. I can answer any questions at this point, now that the dog's quiet.
No questions for me. Anybody else?
So Peter, all this work is happening outside our jurisdiction, is that correct?
No, the only.
Yeah. Yep, the decommissioning of the existing septic tank, which just includes pumping it and filling it with like a clean stand, or it could even just be excavated material from, when they dig out the system.
Mm-hmm.
So no new components within jurisdiction. No, this is a very minimal project.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Minimal disturbance, I guess, for the resource area.
Any questions? Any public comment, 27 Miller Road? Raise your hand or put something in the Q&A box or chat. Okay, I'm gonna make a motion to issue a negative RDA for 27 Miller Road.
Thomas, second.
Um,
Oh, with the conservation posting.
I was just about to say, with the condition that they put 3 conservation posts.
Thomas, second.
Roll call vote, Caulfield's aye. I don't think we heard you, Carol.
Lundin, aye.
Spady, aye.
Thomas, aye.
Okay, 4-0. Thank you. Peter, next up is a 15 Rollins Road. This is a notice of intent to repair a septic system.
All right, this is me again, Peter with Collins Engineering Group, representing the homeowner. As mentioned, this is a notice of intent for a repair on an existing 4-bedroom septic. We have a stream and a BVW across the back of the property. The 50-foot buffer is shown just in front of the house, and the 100-foot buffers are out closer to the street line and the property line. Our proposal is decommissioning the existing septic tank and leaching components and installing a gravity system to a 14 by 29 leaching bed of plastic chambers. And what else? There will be some tree removal associated with this inside of the 100-foot inner riparian zone. You can see just from the general layout, there's really no site. There's nowhere on the site that's any more compliant. The northern site is kind of eliminated by the underground utilities and the water line, and it's not really gaining us any more distance. So we did our test holes in the southeastern portion of the lot and decided on basically replacing where the old system is. We do have high groundwater out there, so there is going to be elevated conditions over the tank in the leaching field. We've proposed erosion control starting at the house and wrapping around the entire project, including the street line and back up to the house. We do show a soil stockpile location at approximately the 100-foot inner riparian limit. And we show our typical conservation posts and locations and details on our plan. We show an 8-inch straw wattle around the project. Here's our standard dewatering pit and erosion control notes, silt sacks in the catch basins. What else? All the normal conditions, I would say. All the disturbance, yeah, is happening in the front yard.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is one of those properties where any place you put this is not going to be a great choice. And I think the only question that I had was the westerly portion of this and whether or not that made any more sense. And you pointed out that it didn't, given the underground utilities as well as really just the same amount of tree removal and anything else. So it's a challenge. Yes.
I just, because Peter brought up the inner riparian zone, I just wanted to speak to the type of wetlands that are on this site. For anybody who hasn't been there, there is a defined channel for an intermittent stream. Of course, in our drought, there's nothing flowing there, and it has a wetland buffer, bordering vegetated wetland along the edge of the stream, but it's a narrow wetland area and this house received an order of conditions in '85, which is which is months before the local wetland protection bylaw went into place. They don't have a certificate of compliance on the house, but the proposed location is similar. The plan of record is similar to what's shown on Peter's plan here. Just wanted to give you that context.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I think it's one of those challenges that, you know, we're dealing with a situation that was, you know, present 35 years ago, and before we had anything we could really do anything about. And you know, repairing a septic system in this situation is about the best we can ask for. Carol?
Right, I noticed that, Andrea, you mentioned a kind of a stream bed kind of a thing. There's a plank that goes over it, and there's a wood pile there and a bucking, you know, firewood bucking sawhorse kind of thing. And I wonder if we want those removed from that.
I do recall the wood pile area, and it looked like upland to me. That's what I meant by saying it was a rather narrow wetland along the edge of the stream. There are two crossings of the stream. And honestly, I mean, I saw that as being a good stewardship, or perhaps as high water more frequently than, you know, one suggests.
Any other questions?
It's in the 50-foot note. It's in the 50-foot of a wetland, though. That to Carol's point, it's not in a wetland, but it's within 50 feet of a wetland. If the commission wants to speak to it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, from my perspective, you know, we're talking about disturbed property, current use. You know, if there's really some debris, I was at the property, and, you know, obviously there's a deck out the back of the property, but they have no backyard. So, I'm willing to sort of leave it as is myself, unless there's something specific we want addressed.
I'm with you. I actually saw it coming from the other. I was in the woods coming from the other side from Wheaton, but kind of hiked on in there. But yeah, I didn't see it being a huge disturbance or anything like that. So.
Okay. Any public comment for 15 Rollins Road? Seeing none. Carol, is that it, Carol? Anything else? Okay. So I'm gonna make a motion to issue a permit for work and order conditions for 15 Rollins Road, making the recommendation, the condition also that no dumping in wetlands will be a perpetual condition. Do I have a second?
80 a second.
Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye. Can't hear you, Carol.
Lundin, aye.
Spady, aye.
Thomas, aye.
Okay, thanks, Peter.
All right, before I sign off, I guess I'll ask Andrea maybe, do we have anything further on the certificate of compliance at 9 Prospect Street?
9 Prospect is on the agenda, Rory.
So, Peter, just, I would be very surprised we have any issues with 9 Prospect. I was out there, and so if you're asking if you have to hang around for 9 Prospect, I would say that would be a waste of your time.
Okay, I didn't notice it on the agenda, but yeah, I guess
it's our last item, unfortunately.
yeah. Check
Do
in
you
with
think the other people would mind if we took 3 minutes?
So why don't I, as the chair, make that determination and say, listen, we're going to jump 9 Prospect out of order just to keep Peter from having to stay until 9 o'clock. So we have a certificate of compliance for 9 Prospect Street. I will handle this, Peter, if you don't mind. I was out at the site on Saturday. All the debris was removed. We did get pictures of the removal happening with a mini excavator on Friday. They took out two truckloads full of material. It has all been removed. They did not damage the property in any way. They used some protection on the lawn to mitigate any problems with the excavator coming in and doing anything. So it looked great to me. So I'm all in favor of issuing a certificate of compliance. Anybody have any comments? So I make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 9 Prospect Street.
Spady, second.
Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Dean, aye.
Spady, aye.
Thomas, aye.
There you go, Peter.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, we'll see you next time.
Okay. So next up is 23 Deer Run Road. This is a notice of intent to construct a pool house, pool, and a hot tub.
I'm bringing up Joe Keane, who is the applicant, and if the engineer and any other people could raise their hand so I can bring you up. Oop, 2 have raised their hands. There's the pool guy being promoted. Who else is getting promoted?
Amanda
Amanda.
Langer.
Is getting promoted.
Okay, so I don't know who wants to take control of this. You guys are all on mute. Actually, Amanda's off of mute, but the other 2 of you are on mute if you want to talk.
Hi, good evening. My name is Amanda Langer, and I'm representing the applicant, Mr. Joe Keane, and I'm with Jacobs Driscoll Engineering.
Great. So do you want me to bring up plans, or do you want to bring up plans?
I can bring it up. See if I can do this here.
You can you also take your video on, or is that?
That is not working at the moment.
Okay.
There you go. Are you able to see that?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, so I am here representing Joe Keane, who is requesting to build a pool in his backyard with a fence, in addition to the proposed pool house that you'll see here and a hot tub. It is outside of the 50-foot, but a portion of it will be within the 100-foot. We do have erosion controls. There will be a little bit of a tree removal, not too much within the 100-foot. We do have erosion controls going around the entire perimeter of the work. He does have wetland markers, which are these little X's right here, along the 50-foot buffer line already installed. The wetlands were delineated in October 13th, 2019 by Caitlin Merrill Gonyer. I'm probably saying her last name wrong, but he is requesting permission to install and build this in his backyard.
So I think that the initial questions I have are how much grading is going to happen with relation to this?
So there really isn't that much grading. As you can see, there's a small portion right here, and a lot of it basically stays the same with the existing grade, minus, this 196 contour that goes back here. There's very minimal grading involved, and there is just a few grades over here where the walkway is going to be just to keep it even. But majority of the grading is outside of the 100-foot, minus that 196 contour that you see right here behind. So there really isn't that much of a change in the grade.
So do we have an estimate of the square footage of woodland disturbance that's happening here?
I don't believe I do. Let me see here. My apologies, I don't believe I do, but Within the 100-foot, it's very minimal.
So minimal being maybe a couple hundred square feet minimal? Anybody have a rough guess? I'm trying to just estimate my eyeballs here.
Right
It might be maybe 300 feet, 300 square feet, maybe.
Yeah, right around there, probably.
Rory, I have a question on this.
Sure.
I just don't see what the purpose of the proposed wide walk with steps is when they can just shift the whole entire pool to the left.
So the question being,
You mean shifting it over here?
No, just shifting it closer to the house, the whole entire project.
so you can get almost all this project out of the buffer zone, out of our jurisdiction if you shift it left.
Right. So the problem with that becomes he already has a little bit of like a gazebo structure here. It's like a stone paver patio. And as far as shifting it closer to the house, he's going to lose a significant portion of his yard in doing so. And as far as the topo goes and stuff, it probably will change the grading a lot as well.
Well, I mean, that property pretty much is a pretty consistent slope from the deck all the way out to the woods. I mean, I don't know that the grading, it obviously changes what the grading is, but I don't think it changes how much grading would have to get done. In fact, if anything, it slopes further and faster as you get further away from the house. So I don't know that necessarily is a rationale that I could get behind. I think that the question that Commissioner Thomas is asking is the benefit, the wetland benefit of getting it out of the 50-foot, the second 50-foot buffer zone, offset by some loss of lawn to the applicant. And, I mean, I think that we as a commission have to sit here and say, would we rather have the applicant have an extra 20 feet of lawn versus do we want to disturb woods in this area?
And just to add, for the woods portion of it, I live near this area. I know these woods pretty intimately. This is full of turkey, and a large turkey habitat is over that way. So I know for sure cutting some of those trees down. I know on that Deer Run Road specifically, they got them everywhere.
Oh yeah,
so
definitely.
That's nesting spots. It's their homes too. So.
I mean, I feel that the applicant could potentially make this more conducive to the environment. And if they wanted to potentially incorporate the gazebo structure into the design, the whole conglomerate design, then they could do so. I feel that either they could minimize the size and extent of what they're proposing to capture both what they're looking for and also the lawn, keeping a good portion of the lawn, or they can try to shift it, outside our jurisdiction. I think there's a way to complement the environmentally sensitive areas such as the buffer zone and also be able to permit this project.
I agree. The entire buffer zone is required to presume significant to the protection of wetland values. So I'm in agreement with my fellow commissioners about getting the project out of our jurisdiction.
So I think it's in your hands now to explain to us why that's an unreasonable ask on our part to in order to approve this project. Why is it unreasonable to try and move this project outside of our jurisdiction?
So by shifting it,
let's put it this way, okay? Here's an interesting question, and it's one of these questions. If we denied this, would the applicant move it?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure if he would just not build it or if he would move it, to be honest.
So this.
Can't hear you.
Can't hear you now, Mr. King.
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so if if we can't locate it here, we likely would not go forward with the plan.
So what's the justification for this? So I think you need to convince us of why that it's important the location is right now.
You know, we tried our best to fit the pool in the current footprint of the property as it's landscaped. We did not want the pool kind of sitting right on top of the house, right, and eliminating the backyard entirely. And you know, we are somewhat limited because there's an easement to the other side of it.
Right here.
Yeah, and so we tried to come up with something. You know, the way the wetlands, it's we tried to position it to the side of the yard that was furthest away from, you know, the 100-foot buffer area, and try to get the majority of the pool and the facility in that space. But bringing it up further would just it would just bring it too close to the house and eliminate the backyard, and it would create, you know, for the area that's already the yard that's already finished, it kind of then cuts that off from the house. So if we can't fit it in this space, we probably wouldn't go forward with it.
What about making any sort of move to move it as much out of the 100-foot buffer as possible?
Yeah, so we certainly would consider if we could make some modifications to it to try to compromise and get it to a better spot. If you had any suggestions or thoughts as to what would be acceptable.
I mean, when we originally sort of went to the drawing board with this plan, we had actually had it proposed further back, but we have since, you know, done as much as we can to move it as close to the house to allow, you know, a comfortable backyard area, as well as keep it as, you know, as far out of the wetland buffer as we could and away from that easement as well.
Yeah, I mean, just have,
I mean,
have to think
the only
about
thing really that's in the buffer is a small portion of the pool, the hot tub, and then the rest is just the fencing and a small portion of the patio area right there.
Is the pool designed, or is this a placeholder?
I'm not sure, Joe would probably.
Yeah, no, this is the pool design.
Okay.
Well, I agree what you're saying about the amount of the proposed, construction and its relationship to the 100-foot buffer. But I would just, the big umbrella here is that the reason that the state and the town mandates protecting our wetlands and their buffers is for the public interest.
So I think we're talking about 10 feet here, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, if you see right here,
it's probably, I mean, the width of from the edge of the pool to the edge of the decking is 10 feet. So you add a couple feet onto that. I mean, we're really talking about, 15 feet, maybe 15, 16 feet to get it entirely out. But, I mean, we're really talking about, somewhere between 15 and,
What if we move the hot tub so that the only portion of the pool that's in the restricted areas is really that hot tub, and what if we move that to the opposite side, so we got the entire pool outside the 100-foot buffer, and really the disturbance we'd be talking about would be the walkway and the fence.
Right, but so I think it's the same. Yeah, I think it's it's the same disturbance to the woodlands, though, right? So I mean, it doesn't change how much woodlands we're trying to remove here. So I mean, if you said we would shift this pool 8 to 10 feet north, 8 to 10 feet closer to the house, and then that would leave it probably in the neighborhood of 4 to 6 feet of, inside
Okay.
that buffer zone.
So you're saying if we could shift it up 8 to 10 feet, that would be acceptable?
I'm proposing a compromise.
Yeah.
Others on the commission, you heard here, that would want it entirely out of the buffer zone. If we moved it 10 feet closer to the house, then, you've only got a couple of feet that are sitting inside inside the buffer zone.
Okay.
So essentially what you're saying is, let me see if I can zoom in on this here. If we shift it up so that basically the pavers would start where this edge of the hot tub is.
Probably, yeah, that'd be 10 feet, right?
And the fence would go around it then after that.
Yeah.
So this edge would shift up here.
That would be 10 feet, right?
Okay.
I mean, that's my suggestion. I don't know what the other commissioners would feel about that.
Yeah, that would help. You had mentioned that there were some number of trees and shrubs would have to come out to do what you're proposing in this plan.
I mean, that would significantly drop if we did that.
Right. There's still the disturbance, of the construction. You can't put in all that hardscape of the pool surround without going outside of where the fence would be. Because like machines run around, they move soil, they bring in pavers. So there is, temporary disturbance there. But if we could have a head count, and the trees and shrubs that are growing there are beautiful. I mean, a lot of homes that have woodland edges are filled with invasive exotic plants, but your home has beautiful oak trees, a whole row of witch hazels that are blooming right now. I'd really hate to see those native plants that are so well established disturbed.
I mean, we'll absolutely do our best to preserve as much as we can. I mean, our mission here isn't to go in and destroy the landscape, that's for sure. I'm pretty sure that Joe, wants to also keep as much of that as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. That's been our intent with this project is to try to do so with as minimal, change to that part of the environment as possible.
So, John or Michael, do you have any other comments?
Mike, you want to go first?
No, I think I'm good. Thank
All
you.
right. Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of getting back to what I was saying, is shifting the whole thing to the left to meet that 102 contour where the fence line would potentially be. I think that's where you're looking at potentially this going. Where the existing 102 contour is, that fence would start there potentially if you're shifting everything 10 feet.
Correct. That's about right, John. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would guess that's about right.
So I think that would be a good compromise to start with. They come back and present it as redesigned, and we can make a decision from there, and hopefully have some sort of calculation what was previously proposed versus what is currently proposed to give us more assurance for our determination.
Yeah, we can absolutely do that.
Any public comment on 23 Deer Run Road? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to suggest that we continue this. Would you be prepared for our next meeting, or do you need more time than that?
I can prepare for the next meeting. When is the next one?
November 16th.
Yeah, I can have it done by then.
Actually, Amanda, will you be able to have it done a week before then so I can review it?
Yes, of course. What is the date a week before then? I'm sorry, my calendar in front of me.
The 9th.
That would be this Friday?
Thank you, that'd be
week from
great.
Today. Well, she says, okay, Friday would be the best day, Andrea.
So I'm sorry, Monday. Okay, yep, I'll have plans to you by Monday, Andrea.
Thank you.
Okay, so, Mr. Keene, any questions, comments?
No, I don't think so. I think we understand what
Okay,
you're
so-
looking for. We'll be ready in a couple weeks.
Great. So I'm going to make a motion to continue 23 Deer Run Road to November 16th.
Spady, second. Oop. Lundin has it.
Roll call, Caulfield's aye.
Lundin, aye.
Spady, aye.
Thomas, aye.
Okay, thank you very much, guys.
Okay, thank you.
So we're on to 20 South Street, which is an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation in ANRAD. Andrea, you're on mute, Andrea.
There he is.
Okay, so I guess it's is it
Frank Reiblin. I'm going to bring
Frank?
him up as well.
Yeah. Ah, there we go. Finally, Mr. Humphrey, nice to see you. Frank, did you bring Frank up?
Good.
What happened to him? There he is. Frank, you're on mute, so. Frank, there we go.
Oh, does everyone hear me now?
We do.
Okay. Okay, the parcel that we're discussing is a little over 16 acres of land.
Frank, do you want me to bring up
It has
the plan?
frontage on South Street.
Frank, do you want me to bring up the plan, or do you want to bring it up?
If you can bring it up, that would.
Yeah, I can do that.
I believe it may be a little more convenient if you can pull it up.
Yeah, I got it. It's all good.
Okay. This parcel of land has frontage on South Street, right in the corner of South Street. It's a little over 16 acres of land. It abuts in the back the Greenwood Village condominiums, as well as the rear properties of the homes of Lancelot Lane. We have a small area of wetlands that will be in the southeasterly corner of the property, right along the stone wall. Much of the wetlands goes on to property of the Greenwood Village condominiums, and this appears to be an isolated pocket. We cannot find any inlet or outlet to this parcel. We have had the area delineated by Ken Thompson. We have located the flags by conventional survey and shown on the plan. We're now requesting that the Conservation Commission review this line and let us know if you agree with it.
So just to sort of, this is the portion of this property. There's a whole nother parcel to the north of this, which is on the second page of this, that is all upland. Just to give the commission and anybody in the public the full picture here. So the only portion we're talking about is this small portion in the southeast corner, as Frank talked about, but it's not just this property. There's a whole nother piece that's actually bigger than this north of the property here. So I was actually out on the property on Saturday and found the flags in the field, and everything looked copacetic to me. I couldn't actually traverse too far into the woods. It was pretty dense as far as woodlands were concerned. And you know me, I'll go through any woods possible, but I just wasn't out there. There's too many prickers on on Saturday, so I wasn't going to. So I don't have any questions. Andrea, go for it.
I actually did walk the entire
Right.
property.
Good for you.
I went to find every little depression, and it is the most upland property I have visited in the town of Easton that isn't permanently protected. That is
Beautiful.
the extent of wetland as far as I can tell.
Great. Anybody else have any questions? Okay. Let's just see if there's any public comment for 20 South Street. Just raise your hand. We'll promote you so you can ask your question. I also want to be clear that there's no project before us. This is simply us confirming the delineation of the wetland resources on the property. Okay, so there's something in the Q&A box. Mark asks, there are a lot of wetlands there or not? And the answer there is that there are not a significant amount of wetlands on this property. It's very limited to a very small portion of the property in the southeast corner. The rest of the property is free of any wetlands.
There's the wetland.
That's it. So another question here from Mr. Carester from 21 South. Can you explain the impact of this determination on potential development and impact on drainage issues? Many of the abutting properties have significant water sump pump issues. Andrea, you want to give us a technical answer to that?
Well, we haven't done, they haven't done any perk tests yet, so we don't know the distance to observed groundwater. This section that I flagged does show signs of having high water, and Ken Thompson can speak to that because he actually saw it when it wasn't in drought condition. It's a relatively, any impact on drainage issues in the development stage, basically they can develop the property outside of the yellow line, which is 100 feet from the wetland, without coming back to the Conservation Commission. If they were to come into that, and even at the planning board, the conservation, the stormwater design is such that all post-development water has to stay on site. They can't have any greater drainage off the site than is presently there. It's not that technical an answer unless, and maybe Ken Thompson or who's the wetland biologist, or Frank wants to go into it further.
I saw spring breakout. My name is Ken Thompson. I'm the botanist who flagged the site, and I use soils to actually identify this area. It actually discharges near those 3 gold stars that you have. Groundwater kind of comes out of the ground there, and then it puddles behind the buildings of the Gaslight apartment. You can see drainage across. It could be a perch system in that area. I actually could probably, if I could get out of the full screen, I could probably tell you what soils are in there because it would have been in my report. And I apologize for not having it open. But the rest of the site, it is tough walking. That huckleberry will get you.
Yeah.
I was tired coming out of that set of woods, you know. Let's see, here we go. Paxton in the upland. And I actually didn't look it up to the soils. on that one. So no, I don't have the answer, except for what I observed, that groundwater was breaking out in that area, and it was mainly due to the soils. He told me that. And the water shows up near the stone wall and then heads east. And I also went and surrounded the whole site looking for depressions. There's one on the other side, but the soils are upland over there. It's actually a swale, not a swale, but a V heading for a backyard.
Great. There's two questions in the question and answers, and I'll just group them together. What's marked on here is Greenwood Village Condominiums, is also known as Gaslight, right? The Gaslight Lane community, is that correct?
Frank, you there?
Yes.
I believe so. I'm not a local resident.
Frank, do you know for sure?
Yes, it is. That is Gaslight Lane.
Thank you. So any further public comment? Just go through the list one more time here. Okay, so seeing none, any additional questions from the commission or from Andrea? One more question in the Q&A box. I don't, so it says yes. Okay, so I will make a motion to issue an order of resource area delineation for 20 South Street as depicted on the application. Hang on just one sec.
As recommended in the staff report, because
As recommended in the staff report.
not, we only want to pick up those flags that are on the project
So
site.
I will restate it. So make a motion to issue an order of resource area delineation confirming the wetland boundary on the project located by flags KT1 through KT15 as isolated land subject to flooding under state regs 310 CMR 1057 2B and a vegetated wetland and isolated land subject to flooding under the local regulations Easton Code Book Chapter 503 Section 17 and 19 with an associated buffer zone in 503.20.
Thomas, second.
Roll call vote, Caulfield's aye.
Lundin, aye.
Spady, aye.
Thomas, aye.
Very good.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Ken.
Bye, Bill.
Bye, Bill.
Thank you.
You.
Thank you for the public questions as well. I appreciate that. We have a certificate of compliance for 439 Purchase Street.
Is anybody here for Purchase Street? Okay, I'll take it. The Purchase Street has a certificate of compliance that was issued in 2013 and has been approved, has been recorded. As you can see on the plan that Rory pulled up, the Purchase Street is running north-south across the plan, and the driveway is up adjacent to the dwelling, and so the septic system was on the far side of the project from the wetland. The shed was there and those outbuildings were in place when this thing was approved. They showed up on the authorized plan as already existing and were not asked to be relocated. Obviously, it's been well stabilized and there are no perpetual conditions that are identified in the order.
Any questions? So any public comment for 439 Purchase Street? Okay, seeing none, make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 439 Purchase Street. There's no perpetual conditions.
Thomas, second.
Roll call vote, Caulfield's aye.
Lundin, aye.
Beatty, aye.
Thomas, aye.
188 Massapog Avenue. Anybody here from 188 Massapog?
No hands are raised. Massapog, 188 Massapog was an after-the-fact clearing that occurred, was an after-the-fact filing of clearing in mapped habitat of what we found to be the marbled salamander. The order of conditions was issued in October of 2016 and recorded, and it picked up the conditions that the Natural Heritage put on the project. Just of note, this is one of the few project sites where lawn is still mapped habitat for a in the plans that got revised in 2017. I did send an email to Natural Heritage to let them know the project was asking to be closed out, and they have, once they saw the project photographs that the applicant included, they were fine with letting this close out because the fence was authorized 100 feet from the wetland edge, and that appears to be where it is. It was supposed to just reconstruct the area. They were supposed to pull out debris that was in the woodlands at the time of the order being issued, and then reseed it. And when I saw the property before the snowfall, it did look like it had reseeded well. Rory has a keener eye than I, and his photographs are actually picked up and put on your packet on page 16.
So there's a 50-gallon drum that's probably about 20 feet outside the fence line. Additionally, there is another debris. Can you see that? No?
You haven't showed your screen.
Okay, hang on. Having a little trouble navigating here. So that's aluminum siding. That's about 10 feet. This right in the center here, this pale pink type of, so that's aluminum siding. Now, the reason why I point these out is that that's what I can see. It was snow covered on Saturday. So I'm a little bit concerned about the area, while it was allowed to naturalize, contains a significant amount of debris. I don't know what else could be underneath there amongst the ground cover and whatnot. So I'm not inclined to issue a full certificate of compliance on this. I mean, if we want to issue a partial for the fence and leave this issue open for the second half of this, which was restoration of the disturbed area, that's about the best I could do on this. Anybody have questions?
Are we allowed to visit this site?
I didn't have the telephone number of the applicant, so I stayed farther out than Rory did,
Okay.
which is why he's got a keener eye.
Okay, because I can definitely swing by on my way to work and stop by if we have the authority to check on this project.
You
So-
know that by the fact that it's under review, we have a notification that we will be out there.
Okay.
Yeah, so I knocked on the door, there wasn't anybody there, and and so they didn't answer, and they had a security system. I could see that there was a camera at the front door, so I assumed that they saw me, but
Okay.
I went out the backside and went along the fence line.
I mean, I can stop by and take photographs I'll knock on their door, and if I'm questioned, I'll just let them know what I'm doing.
Yeah, I tried to connect with them today and was unable to.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's near my house as well. I mean, I could certainly go back if I could only get so much of the snow covered ground. Now you'd see everything that was out there. So yeah, so if you could do that, John, that'd be great. So do we continue this or issue a partial for the fence, or what are we going to do here? Any suggestions?
Continue, be my vote.
Yeah, I agree, continue.
So Andrea, is there any concern about continuing?
No, my concern earlier when we spoke was that you don't want to continue ad infinitum, but to get additional information that you're gathering.
Okay, so I make a motion to continue 188 Massapog until we can get additional information on what that previously disturbed area looks like without snow cover.
Lundin, second.
Hang on a second. Public comment on 188 Massapog. Seeing none. So roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Lundin, aye.
Stady, aye.
Thomas, aye.
Thank you. Okay, so next up is we were going to talk about, why don't we bring up Phil Benjamin? So there's an opportunity for us to apply for a grant to do a forestry plan, forestry stewardship plan for Wheaton Farm. This plan, the previous plan that we did was from 1999. We actually used that plan as part of our MVP grant submission that we did for Sam Wright Farm that we're imminently starting now that we just filed that NOI on, and we're about to start work down there and tearing up the concrete pad that's there. So it was an opportunity for us to say, this plan is 20 plus years old. The concept here is, do we want to have a plan in place on how to manage this forest and how to go about doing that and what needs to get done. So I actually went out and walked the property a couple weeks ago. At this point with Andrea and Phil Benjamin, who's a forester. He's invited here tonight to sort of talk about this process and how we might go about this. The forestry plan itself could be covered by the grant, or a significant portion of it. It doesn't cover all of it, but maybe Andrea and Phil can give us a little bit more detail about what it is. So Andrea, you want to kick it off and then hand it over to Phil whenever you get there?
I'm going to get there fast.
Excellent.
Phil is an Easton resident. He knows Wheaton Farm as well as I do, probably better. There is a forestry grant available by DCR, the Stewardship program, that depending on the amount of acreage involved, will calculate out how much match the town has to put in. And the reason I want to drop this into Phil's lap so quickly is because he's been in contact with the Southeast Forester, who might have a sense of what the match requirements would be in terms of dollars.
Okay, Phil, you're up.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for letting me join you guys tonight. These virtual meetings are sort of still a learning curve for me. But anyhow, just briefly to follow up what Andrea said, I've been living in Easton since 1979. I've been a full-time practicing forester throughout southeastern Mass since 1978. I did a lot of work with the Friends of Wheaton Farm back in the late 90s, prepare that plan. We've done some subsequent plans on the Forestry Grant town forest. Can't remember what that was, about 2013 maybe, in terms of just learning, preparing stewardship plans for these properties. When I learned about that municipal vulnerability program last spring, and when I realized that there was actually an interest in forestry or forest management, it just really perked up my ears. And I was really thinking about the Wheaton Farm. That's really the jewel in this town, as far as in my mind, as far as permanently protected open space. And it was really interesting 21 years ago when I was doing my field work out there, but an awful lot's happened out in the woods since that time. And it's the awareness that it would be invaluable to have a new snapshot, a current snapshot of where those woods are right now. At the same time, taking advantage of this Easton selection to be part of this MVP program. And thirdly, having funding that would be available through DCR. That would cover a fairly good portion of the plan. I sent Andrea a proposal back like almost a year ago, November 12th. And understanding that it was about 1,130 acres, up from the 900 plus when I was out there before. And based on properties of similar size where we've done plans to the degree that we have, I had estimated it could be anywhere from $17,000 to as much as $19,000 for a 10-year plan. I called Mike Downey today. He's the service forester for DCR that administers this Working Forest Initiative program. Based on the formula that was established in 2014 for properties greater than 1,000 acres, there's $910 for the first 36 acres, and anything above would be $7 an acre. At that rate, it would be a contribution of $8,610 plus or minus. However, DCR has a discretion to go as high as 14,000 and change. Mr. Downey could not promise, obviously, anything, but he seemed to feel that there was some discretion to push that number up closer to the max. It would still leave a small amount the town would be responsible for, but it just seems like that property is worth knowing more about. These plans that we do now, we work with ArcGIS so we can digitize, put in digital format, a lot of the information in the plan, the mapping in particular. When I did that plan back in 1999, GIS was just starting to come out, so there's definitely been some rubberizing to have what the assessors felt were their plot lines jive with what was on the ground. It wasn't too bad, but we still had to rubberize it. And actually going through the selection of parcels, Andrea had given me an overview of all the parcels now. That plan wasn't that far off in terms of lot lines. You've just acquired more land, which is great. And the plan, in case you're wondering where this is leading, the plan is taking a picture of your woods right now, at this point in time. We sample and inventory the woods. The woods are broken up into compartments of similar species or age class of trees, called forest stands. We generate the current conditions of how many trees per acre, the average size of the trees per acre, the volume per acre. And more importantly, or as importantly, we're working on we're taking note of what's going on in those various stands at that time. Has there been insect damage? Is there been mortality? Is there a good generation of young trees coming in? What's the condition of the overstory? We're looking at it through the lens. We look at it through the lens of songbird habitat in particular, what might or might not be done to enhance that. I do know that when we did that plan in '99, the Friends of Wheaton Farm turned around and hired a woman by the name of Diane Burritos off the Cape for doing a wildlife habitat assessment at the time. I never saw that once it was done, but I know that the plan that we did really served as a foundation in which the town can learn more and more about their property over time, depending on the interest of the commission or a new Friends of Wheaton Farm. So then what we try to do is, as part of the process, we provide the Conservation Commission, in this case, what's called a survey, a stewardship survey, where it serves as a catalyst for the Conservation Commission members in particular to kind of think about what's important to the commission for the forest looking ahead. The beauty of being permanently protected is you can think way out. You don't have to worry about it being bulldozed for a golf course or for a subdivision. So you can really take that long range view. And so some of the management recommendations are based on both what we see in the woods, but they also as much try to reflect the interest of the Conservation Commission or the landowner. And then you try to meld and make that just kind of come to a common agreement or mutual, common agreement as far as what makes sense moving forward. And then you slowly over time take steps or not. So I guess that's it in a big nutshell. I'll be quiet for a moment if you guys have questions you'd like to ask.
So this is more of a procedural question. Maybe Andrea or Phil, whichever has the answer, could help us out. So if we apply for the grant to have this stewardship plan developed, and they come back on the low end at 8,000, 8,600 for the grant, and which means then we have to come up with about $10,000 as our portion of the grant. Can we make a decision at that point that we don't want to move forward, or I assume we could just let the grant expire and not take advantage of it?
Yeah, no, these funds are authorized or reauthorized on an annual basis, and there's just one pot every year. And DCR, Mike Downey, suggests if landowners are interested, get their applications in. They're approved on a as they arrive basis.
Right.
And if the numbers turn out to be totally unacceptable or unworkable for the town, you can simply notify Mr. Downey and he will just cancel that out and return those funds back to the pot for someone else to use.
So how long does the grant process take, and then how long does, if we agree to move forward, how long does your process take as far as developing a stewardship plan?
Well, the grants they expire every year at the end of June, along with the state fiscal year. So we have to have our plans done by the end of June of any given year. The grant approval process, it's a little hobbled right now because DCR is missing an administrative person, a clerk, in one of the central offices. But if an application is emailed to Mike, it could take, probably be approved in a week's time. And then once it's approved, then I have a fellow work with me full time who does most of the GIS stuff along with all the other things that we do. We would just start ramping up the prep work, getting the maps up to speed, and ready to go out in the field to do our field work.
Can you give us some sense of what stewardship entails? What could come out of this plan is potential actions on our part?
Well, a real easy one would be invasive species control. We've taken a couple of walks over in that pine stand on the west side of Hammond's Pond and Ward's Pond. And over the years, I've just been aware how steady the glossy buckthorn has been and slowly working its way into that forest. So invasive control could definitely be a area of interest. And really, the thing that we focus on as foresters working for us in a situation like this is what we're trying to do is ensure that there is a good representation of all age classes of trees through that property. You don't need it all in every spot, every square foot on the property, but you want to make sure that you have your seedlings and saplings of the species that you'd like to see continue growing out there. You'd like to have the poles that are going to slowly develop into the bigger mature saw timber that are out there. So you need that continuum of age classes. So if there ever is a disturbance, you have younger trees of the species you'd like to see or that you envision in that forest in place, ready to go. The other thing we look for, the other thing that we focus on is just looking at how well suited is that forest in terms of resilience. We've taken a hit over the last, well, since the early 80s, with a couple of waves of gypsy moth and winter moth defoliations that have really set back some of our oak forests. I know in the early 2010s, I took a hike out there with Andrea's predecessor because we had it was obvious the oaks were really taking it on a chin at that time. And there was a ton of mortality, but it was almost too late to do anything with those dead oaks. So they died in place and fell back to the forest floor. But you really want to try to make sure your forest is resilient in terms of age classes and making sure that there's areas where the trees are able to grow robustly without stress, without stagnation. So in answer to your question, Rory, sometimes, some instances, that can involve actual going in to thin out some of those woods or to pull out some of the more mature trees to allow opportunities for regeneration of the trees you want. We also look at it in terms of the structure, in terms of what would be drawn in there from a wildlife point of view. There's certain bird species like the towhees that just spend most of the time on the forest floor foraging for insects. There's other birds like the scarlet tanagers, which hardly ever come out of the canopy. And so you want to make sure you have that good mix that would make those woods more attractive to a greater variety of species. Then you have your grasslands that I know that Langwater is doing a lot of work on some of it, but I don't know how much. And the grassland habitat, as you probably know, is extremely valuable from a wildlife point of view.
Yeah, that actually came up as part of the Sam Wright farm, which is the northern part of Wheaton Farm. That whole, in fact, it was one of the reasons why there was a lot of interest. I think even the Audubon Society is interested in what the open meadows there are providing and the habitat that we have. We're putting up some bird boxes and some raptor stands as well as the proposal to put out there. I mean, I will tell you that when this issue came up in a discussion that I had with Andrea, considering how much work that we're doing on the northern part of this property with the MVP grant, I thought this was a natural fit into making this piece of property even more attractive than it already is. And if we can, my thought is if we can do it for $4,000 or $5,000 out of our pocket to get this forestry stewardship plan in place, as Phil talked about, we can take a long view at this and really look at how we can manage the species in this property on both the tree standpoint as well as the birds and other and mammals that are in there. I think that this is an opportunity for us to continue to have this piece of property be continue to be a tremendous asset for the town. I just thought that that this was just a continuation of what we're investing in the northern part of this property, and looking at the entire piece of property. So that was my thought process on this. I was fascinated by an opportunity to continue to look at this this piece of property. And I know most of us have been out there and continue to use this. I mean, it may be one of the most used piece of properties other than the state-owned property on the borderland in town. So, any questions from the commission? Any feedback?
I
Thought
have
process?
no questions. I guess I'd be interested in seeing what Phil's done to date. I'd really like to look through some of his work if he could send some over to me.
So Phil, just so you know, Phil, John is the conservation agent for the town of Sharon. So.
Oh, okay. You work with Peg Argambo?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Good.
So so he has a dual interest in what you're talking about here. So.
Right.
Well, if Phil's not going to say so, he's actually right now working on the forest plan for the New Bedford forest lands in Lakeville, which is what, a pretty large
Lakeville,
tract.
Middleborough, and Rochester for the most part.
Great.
A little bit of town.
That's a surface water supply, and so the protection of the water supply through the forest is keen, and that's a project that's going on right now. I do just quickly want to say that I'm talking to the water supply the water superintendent tomorrow, and it's possible that we could actually also have a public water supply benefit to doing some forest management here. And we might actually get some, and if it might, I'll ask him if he's interested in providing any additional support if it's necessary. Because it is the Canoe River ACEC, which is a sole source aquifer that supplies water not just to the town of Easton, but to 5 other communities. And so keeping the quantity of the water and the quality of the water, key issue for this particular Wheaton farm.
Yeah, one of the town's wells is over
Right there.
off of this property, so it's right. We walked right by.
Yeah. South end of that white pine stand.
Yeah, exactly. Any other questions or comments? I mean, I just love that we're not just talking about trees here. We're talking about the entire continuum of wildlife, here in this piece of property, and so.
That's awesome.
Yeah, exciting. Bill,
Yeah.
I'm curious about wildfires and fuel on the ground. Is that something you might, other towns ask you to address, or?
It's definitely become a hot topic, so to speak, especially after this summer with the fires out west. The easiest thing I can advise a landowner to do in most cases is, at the very least, just make sure your woods roads can accommodate a brush break. So if there is a fire spotted out in the middle of the forest, instead of them just thrashing their way into that source, if there's some fire roads through the property, that makes life a little easier. I've had a couple landowners down on Cape actually create shaded fire breaks around the perimeters of their property. It's not a cheap proposition, but it's an interesting one nonetheless. But the reality is, there aren't many instances when our woods are as vulnerable as they are out west. But I will mention that we had a April Fool's snowstorm in 1997. It was right before I had done this forestry plan. And as I was cruising through Wheaton Farm, there was a whole generation of white pine poles, probably 5 to 8 inches in diameter, chest height, that had just snapped. That was such a wet, heavy snow that winter storm, and it was blowing hard enough. These trees just weren't strong enough, and they just snapped. And so you had acres of browning dead white pines out in the woods, and that would have been a dangerous situation. It's not as, doesn't happen all the time, but it's something to be aware of. I know that when we set up some sort of forestry improvement cutting, a logging or a thinning project, the material that's not taken out of the woods has to be left diced up to lie right on the ground within 2 feet of the surface, so it can break down that much faster. But beyond that, fortunately, we don't have the same sort of fuel or plants that are designed to burn, like you have down in the pine barrens of Plymouth and Carver, the scrub oak in particular down there. It's something to be aware of. Good access that's not too, I mean, I know access are an issues down in Wheaton Farm with some of the ATV problems, but it's a double-edged sword. Sometimes if you can have access to get where the woods can be reached, that's a way to deal with it, one way to do it.
Right, thank you, Phil.
So I think that Andrea is probably looking for some direction on us, whether we're interested in applying for one of these grants, and then we'll, hopefully there's some discretion there from the DCR, and that they come at the high end of this, so that our out of pocket for trying to get a new stewardship plan done is more in the $4,000 to $5,000 range as opposed to the $8,000 to $10,000 range. But I certainly would be in favor of spending $4,000 of the Conservation Commission's money to invest in this piece of property and make sure that it, is here in the way we want it to be 50 years from now. So I mean that's how I'm thinking about the investment of $4,000 or $5,000. I know the plan is really only a 20-year plan, but it really is setting us up for a long-term approach to this piece of property. And I think for $4,000 or $5,000 it makes sense, and I'm excited to continue to invest in this piece of property for the town.
I will say that in my travels around southeastern Massachusetts, the foresight that the Easton Conservation Commission demonstrated in years past, and the result of that foresight in town, it sets Easton above a lot of other towns in southeastern Massachusetts. Just the feel that it's able to retain with all that open space. It's I'd like to think a plan like this would really complement that, the way Easton is perceived now.
I agree. I think that we have an opportunity here to just continue the work we've been doing for the last 50 years. So that's my approach here. So I think, do you need a motion from us, Andrea, or do you need?
I need just a sense of how to go forward, either a motion or just a voice vote.
So I'm in favor. Everybody else in favor of applying for a grant?
Yeah, I'm definitely in favor. I think it's great.
Same.
So Carol is nodding her head for the record.
You bet.
Good.
Okay, so let's move forward with the grant application, and I guess we see where we go from there, and everything turns out the way we want it to. We can then talk about getting an actual stewardship plan in process.
Good. Well, thank you. Thank you for letting me take the time tonight. This was great.
Yeah, thanks for hanging in there, Phil. It was a little bit longer than we expected to get here.
That's okay. So Andrew, if you have questions on that application, don't hesitate to track me down.
Yes, you did you got some more acreage, so I'll be talking to you by the end of the week.
Okay, very good. Well, I'll sign off then. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Phil. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you very much.
Good night.
Thanks, Bill.
Good night.
So next up on the agenda, I didn't see any meeting minutes. So I think we still have outstanding as 9/28 and 10 something.
14. Yeah, they've both been drafted. I need to get them reviewed, and you'll have them for next week.
That's fine. The gifts of land, this was actually something that we previously voted on last December. It's 3 parcels. Do you want to bring that up? I know it was in our packet.
Yeah, I can bring it up. I'm having a silly problem with,
I have a page up in my, I'll bring it up here, Andrew.
okay, yeah, because I've got it, but it's not fitting on my screen. I don't know why. I can zoom up, but I can't zoom down.
You guys see
So,
it now? Yeah.
yes, so Goodspeed Estates was a subdivision that the Conservation Commission had an order of conditions on in 2017. And these three parcels, actually two of these parcels, the lower two parcels were part of the subdivision approval. And these are the lots right here, 6, 7, this is 7. And then through here, these right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, are the lots. This later lot, this 2.9 acres got added afterwards by the applicant. So it's a gift of land that came out of a Conservation Commission approval of the subdivision and the planning board approval. There is public access down Goodspeed Lane, and then you can access the property here, but no trails exist presently. And there's a lot of wetland on this property. It'll go out, it's landlocked, it comes out on Meeting House Lane, but it doesn't come out on Meeting House Lane. It is behind properties that come out on Meeting House Lane. So it's already, it's a decision, your decision approved it, and you did approve it in November, but didn't get the signatures notarized, and now the Concom membership has changed. So I'm just asking for a confirmatory acceptance of this so I can bring it down to the select board.
So whose signatures do you need notarized?
Either delegate it to me and get it notarized, or delegate it to you, Rory, and have your signature notarized. We do have a notary at Town Hall. If you're available in the mornings, she's available in the morning. We can meet outside.
Yeah, most days I'm certainly available. So any questions from anybody?
No questions, but I will say that there's another grant out there for Mass Trails, so this might be a potential grant opportunity for trail system improvements.
Well, have a Concom member go out and see if it'll work. There's no, it would only loop because we have only one access in.
Right.
We have no other frontage. And if there is a trail, you should also be thinking about it for the property south of the sawmill.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll go walk around out there.
Yeah, bring your boots, buddy.
Well, that's fine. I bring my boots and I bring my bow. Good hunting opportunity.
So, by the way, there's a beautiful stone weir. If you really want to see a nice stone weir on the stream that you have to cross to get into this property.
Really?
With a bridge.
No kidding.
There's actually they built a bridge in a stone weir.
Because the stone weir is the reconstruction of a stream that was part of your approval. And it was very wonderful because our peer reviewer engineer was there while it happened and made sure it got put in place. But there is a pedestrian bridge that goes over the stream at the wonderful at the wonderful stone weir, and it'll take you out, but I don't think that trail goes more than a couple 100 yards.
Okay. All right, I'll figure it out. I'll play around.
I'll give you a better, you can, if this is useful to you, great. Otherwise, I can give you a better, you can look at 345 Center Street.
Yep, I'm looking at it right now on my phone.
And go to the online Conservation Commission application for the subdivision, and you'll get existing topo.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
So I'm just going to make a motion to confirm our acceptance of these three parcels at 345 Center Street, delegating authority to sign on our behalf to either myself or Andrea.
So moved.
Spady, second. Oop.
Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Blondine, I.
Spady, aye.
Thomas, aye.
Okay, thank you guys. And Andrea, just whatever day, I'm available almost like at least 3 or 4 days a week, so.
Okay, I'll speak to our notary and ask what she wants to do.
Okay,
So that's 19 acres, not all of which are high and dry. I'm also bringing down to the select board at the same time the 3.5 acres that we got off of the 348 Foundry project that you approved just a few meetings ago. You did the certificate of compliance, so that is closing both of those out for the end of the year. When we get these gifts of land, we record them, the deeds, and that $100 comes out of your conservation trust fund. But you get land for it, so it seems nominal. I wanted you to know a couple of things. One is there's a new structure that popped up in a new conservation land. It's over on Old Pond and it needs to be removed. And I'm speaking to Todd about it, and Michael, I might get a hold of you with an ATV if we can. There is a trail nearby. We might
Pull it out.
Yeah. But I want to speak to Todd, the DPW, first about how to get rid of it, and if we need another set of hands, I'll give you a call.
Cool. Sounds good.
It won't, it'll be DPW set of hands. So we got a request from the Boy Scouts to camp over at Wheaton Farm on Thanksgiving weekend. He was saying that he had about 50 or so came to a camping event earlier in the fall. He expects it'd be lower if Turkey Day is not
Just
that
real
warm.
quick. I
Yeah,
wonder if it's going to even be allowed now.
yeah, the governor just released a new requirement, less than
By
20
10.
and 10 people. Outdoors is 20.
Yeah, but you have to be in the
Oh,
house by
okay.
10, right? You can't even be outside anymore or something.
Yeah,
crazy like
outdoors
that.
it has to be 20, and then indoors is 10, I believe, something around there.
So and I saw that, and it also has a 9:30 close down, right?
Yeah,
Or and then 10 p.m. curfew.
10 p.m. to 5
I
a.m.
didn't know if that included camping, but maybe.
It said it was like for like your workers and stuff like that, but I don't think it was for
Yeah.
camping.
Okay, I had kind of said to him that the camping spot had a lot of trees on it and, needed a lot of clearing. And so, I asked him to go take a look at it and see if he had the manpower to clean it out, and that he probably couldn't get as many as people as he wanted. So, okay, there we go. There's the request.
So, man, I hate to prove another thing for Wheaton Farm, only to have people say we can't do it. But, I think that's. I mean, I think if we approve this, we just say they have to, conform to all government advisories and guidance related to the pandemic. So the public health emergency. I mean, that's the only thing I would say to this.
Mm-hmm.
If we were to do this, I listen, we just talked about what a great piece of property Wheaton Farm is. It's hard for me to say no to the Boy Scouts. So I'd like to make a motion to allow the Boy Scouts to camp Wheaton Farm with the condition that they conform to all local, state, federal guidance related to the public health emergency.
80 second.
Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Blondine, I.
Spady, aye.
Thomas, aye.
Okay. And the Oliver Ames canceled their cross-country meets. All of them canceled. The CPA application is on the fall town warrant as Article 11. The special town meeting is Monday, November 30th at 7 p.m. at the Stonehill College Ames Sports Complex, just like it was last time. it was submitted by the CP, Community Preservation as written, and both the Select Board and the Finance Committee are in favor of it. But you want to be there.
So the only thing
Your
that,
article, it's your article.
yeah, so the only thing that I would suggest, given how a lot of times when there's any sort of discussion about these things, they want to know how the board that proposed it voted as far as supporting it or not. So I think that we should probably take a vote tonight to either to support Article 11, hopefully. For those of you, this is a grant to do repairs on the Wheaton Farm barn. It's not all the work that needs to get done. It's really just the foundational work that needs to get done to work to get that building back to where it can be used again. Right now, it really can't be used because it's not safe to be inside. So I would like to take a vote tonight so that if I get asked that night, I can say, yes, our board voted 4-0 to support the article. So I'd like to make a motion to support Article 11 in the special town meeting on November 30th related to the CPA grant for Wheaton Farm.
Thomas, second.
Okay, Thomas with the second. Roll call vote, Caulfield's aye.
Lundin, aye.
Beatty, aye.
Thomas, aye.
Okay, thank you. Carol, by the way, at the meeting that the CPA had on this, Carol is our CPA representative on the Conservation Preservation Committee, and so Carol made a very nice speech in support of the article and what it means to the town and or the grant application and what it means to the town and what the historic value as well as the actual agricultural value of that piece of property is. So I appreciate that, Carol.
Thanks for the mention.
Yeah.
And you recall that it was the number of people showed up and spoke eloquently that swayed the Community Preservation Committee itself.
Right.
They weren't there until that night.
Yeah, there was a bunch of people, including former Commissioner Goodman spoke in support. Former Chair Catino also spoke. So.
And your farmer tenant could be using the barn for the reason it was intended.
Right. Mr. O'Hara. So.
One other small little thing. A piece of land came up on the market that is got development constraints, and it's on it's in the Canoe River ACEC, and it is it would be something that it's the first time I've seen a piece of land that I really want to ask you if you might be interested in. In a former composition of the board, you didn't talk about land purchase at all, and because management had taken such a back seat. But this is a property that has you might want to take a look at some point. And so I didn't know how you wanted to handle it. It's on the market. I've got an address I can send to you quietly, and it's going on the market. And as I said, it's got development constraints, but it's ACEC, it's mapped habitat, and it's woodland, upland, wetland.
Is it land? That was gonna be my question. Yeah.
Not mixed any of the.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've only looked at one other piece of property that's come up, so I'm happy to look at whatever comes up. So.
Okay, maybe if the board wouldn't mind, I'll work with Rory and Carol and with the specifics and just see if you want to bring it forward to the board.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if we start discussing it, we'll have to post it as executive session. So.
Right, and this is just,
Yeah, no, this is
putting out a
conceptual.
feeler.
This is conceptual right now.
Yeah,
So we're good.
Okay.
So, okay.
Great, thank you, Andrea.
mhm.
What else, Andrea?
That's it, thank you.
Okay, and just one other question. No, I'll leave it be. So anything else anybody wants to offer or talk about before we head out? Okay, I will entertain one more motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Spady a second.
Spady a second.
Roll call vote, Caulfield's aye.
London, aye.
Spady, aye.
Thomas, aye.
Okay, thanks, guys.
All right.
Hey,
Right, guys.
stay safe.
Thank you, bye-bye.